This is Kim and Yo with Geauga Firearms Academy. Thanks
What's
for watching.
What's up, America?
Today we're going to talk about why stance doesn't matter.
It doesn't?
And before you go all crazy, I know it is a fundamental of shooting. However, when you think about for self-defense, you're not like, hold on, bad guy, I'm not ready yet. Okay, I'm ready. Like, come get me. There's no timeouts. But there are some concepts, and when you are shooting and you're practicing on platform, and how we should look at it in that view instead of a stance, more of a platform in our foundation.
We're going to get into some, I don't want to say scenarios, but I'm going to walk you through a couple things and show you what we're really talking about. But at the end of the day, we have to be in athletic position. That's really what it matters. And when we get in a stance, that kind of, when I say the word stance, that kind of signifies that you're standing still. And I get it. Like, if you're brand new to shooting, that's not what we're talking about. If you're, standing in a square box and you're going to shoot at a paper target and you're not moving anywhere because you're just learning, great. Then stance is important. How you stand can definitely be beneficial to you. What I'm talking about is once we get beyond that, once we're talking about actual self-defense, once we're in a fluid environment, once we're actually moving to and from one place to another, where we encounter a threat is unknown to us, right? Where we're moving from one place to the other, all of a sudden here's this issue. Where my feet are in positioning into regards to my body and whatnot really aren't that important at this point, because as Kim already pointed out, we're not going to have time to do that. We have to deal with the situation that we have in whatever position we're in. So we're going to look at some details about that.
As with most things, there have been changes in how people viewed it. Back in the day, they used to teach the weaver. The idea behind it is that you would have a smaller silhouette. So we're going to show you here in a minute what we mean by this. And they used to train law enforcement this back in the day, and they would train and practice. And then when they would actually watch live footage of them actually getting into real life gunfire, they would all revert back to the natural isosceles, because that's our natural reaction to startling. So we like to take that into consideration too, because why would you fight against our natural instincts? Let's work with it versus fighting against it. If you watch people even going through a fun house or something where they're startled, your natural reaction to being startled is to square off to it and put your hands up. So I'm going to work with that instead of against it.
To demonstrate the weaver, and again, the feet positioning, we'll give you, we'll show you that up close in a minute. But this is the upper body, and this is really what I'm talking about. The weaver stance is a more bladed position, and you'll see a lot of shooters that would do this when they actually had a firearm in their hand. One hand was more straight, and the other hand was bent like this, and then their body was bladed towards the target. Okay. The issue with that, there's a couple things there. One, we want to be as mobile as possible. If we're in some type of life or death threat, we don't want to be standing still. And I get the whole, we're trying to, some of these things sound good things. They just sound good, but when you really apply it, it doesn't make sense. Like, I have a smaller silhouette, so it's, less target to see. Well, that sounds good, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So if you have any type of ballistics on, plates or whatever, obviously the most of that protection is going to be up here in the thoracic cavity, facing the target. The more I start to blade, even though you may have a cummerbund with other plates on the side, obviously this is the weakest part. We should all know that. So the more I start to blade my body, the more I expose myself. So being squared off, just from that perspective alone, is definitely an advantage. The other thing is, if I don't have body armor on, the more I blade myself, the more I open up the possibility that one bullet could go through both lungs, because I'm kind of on this angle. Whereas I'm squared off, there is a chance that I may still have another functioning lung, which is obviously a big win for me. So that's the idea, by being squared off the target and not fighting our body's natural instinctual movements. Moving to a different location here to try to give you a little bit more movement. What we're talking about here when it comes to platform or whatever, and athletic positioning, is I'm really concerned from my waist up and my waist down being literally separate deals here. So in other words, you'll see a lot of shooters when they're getting into their shooting position, they do this like turtle thing, and they're moving their head down, their gun up, and you see them shooting like this. So think about this, as I'm talking to the camera right now, and you guys at home, I'm looking straight like I normally would as a person. So ideally, if I want to shoot, this position is natural for me. This is going to be my best position, not this. I don't generally talk to people like this. So I don't want to engage into shooting that way either. So I want to have my eyesight on the threat, whatever the situation is, and I'm going to bring that, whether it's a dot or a front sight, doesn't really matter, but notice my head and my body alignment here, my shoulders, everything, as I'm standing here naturally, and then I bring that up to my vision. Notice I don't move my head or do this or turn my head or do a bunch of weird things that would be unnatural. Naturally how I talk is how I want to do that. Now, if you look down at my lower body here, if I'm standing here talking to you in a normal position like this, I mean, although I could probably shoot this way, this wouldn't be ideal. This isn't really athletic. If I were playing a game of tennis or something like that where I might have to run in different directions, I'm not going to just stand here like this. I want to be in a more athletic position. And to take that a step further, when we think about this, if we're talking about stability, if I spread my feet really wide this way and someone were to push on me from the side, I would be really strong this way, okay? Now, if someone were to push me from this direction or forward, I would be very unstable, okay? Now, if I did the same thing except I spread my feet forward and back like this, so you see my feet down here in the alignment area, obviously forward and back, I would be very stable and strong. However, side to side, not so much. So what we're trying to do is split the difference so that we're going to be as stable as we can while still maintaining our ability to move very quickly. So what that would look like ultimately is I'm going to take for me as a right-handed person, my right foot, basically the weight's going to be on the balls of my feet on both my right foot and my left foot. But basically I want that the front toe box here, I want that to be in line with my heel. And then I want to be at a good natural spread, a little bit more than shoulder width apart. And then I want my knees to be in a nice bend. From my upper body up, as I discussed earlier, I want this to be as natural as possible. So I'm leaning into this, I'm in a very strong position, my knees are bent, I'm very stable, forward and back, side to side. But notice that when I go to draw the gun or present the gun out, watch my body alignment, it stays pretty much the same. All I'm doing is bringing that up to my line of vision. I'm not doing this or moving my head around. So I'm in a good position, a good platform, a good athletic position. Now, what did I say earlier? I said, well, if we move from point A to point B, we may not be able to predict, obviously, when a threat is going to present itself. So look down at my feet one more time. So if I had the time to set myself up, this is how I'd want to be in a shooting position. However, what if I'm walking? So you don't have to watch my feet here, but as you know, as we walk, obviously one foot after the other. So what happens if when I take my first step, now we can look down at my feet again, I'm in kind of the reverse position where the balls of my feet on my left side are in line with the heel of my right side, which would be ideal, but it's completely the opposite since I'm a right-handed shooter. Well, we look back up at the top of the upper body, again, my knees are bent, I'm in a good position, and I bring the sights right up to my line of vision. Again, I don't change any of this, so this is a nice solid position, okay? But my feet are completely reversed. That's okay. What if I do that as I'm moving? So now I'm in this good position, I'm rolling into the movement here. Same thing, I don't know when that threat is going to present itself, but I want to think of my lower body being mobile, right? My belt buckle is going to be in the direction that I'm traveling. My toes are pointing that direction. My knees are bent. And I have a very steady platform or position to shoot from whenever that situation arises. Another one I'll see in some people, obviously they have medical issues or structural alignment things, and that's a different story. I'm just talking about normal healthy bone structure. I'll see this a lot in the range, and especially people who train other martial arts and stuff. You'll see their rear foot flares out. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. So they put their foot back, and then you'll see this right foot in the back here points in an opposite direction. So it's almost like they're creating an L, okay? And although this may be stable, again, if we're positioned stationary, we always have to think about we need to be able to move. That's a huge advantage in a situation, a life or death situation where there potentially I need to go to a better position of cover and so forth. I don't want my foot in the rear facing the opposite direction. What I want is both feet facing the same direction, and then I can move my hips and my toes will follow. So if I face this direction now, you can see how my toes are aligned that way. If I go back to the front, I'm aligning this way. At all times, my toes are pointed in the direction that I want to go, because this isn't going to help me go any faster. You're not going to see, think of, I don't know, like the Olympics or something, runners who are going to take off in a sprint, you're not going to see somebody with their feet facing the wrong direction. It just doesn't make any sense. So I want to be the same way. So whether I'm moving or I'm stopping for a moment, whatever the case is, I'm behind cover. I want to be in a good position where my knees are bent, okay? The weight's forward. I've got good distance between my feet, a little bit more than shoulder's width. Whichever foot's forward is forward, whatever the case is. Keep in mind, we could make this video forever if we start talking about clearing and which foot goes forward based on how we're going to enter a room and so forth and so on. That's not the idea here. I just want you guys to understand that stance as a stationary position in the beginning is fine, but we have to start thinking about when we have to start to move, you know, trading concealment to cover or whatever the case, getting off the X, going somewhere, getting behind, getting into a vehicle, whatever the case is, we gotta start thinking about how that would happen if I encountered and had to shoot in the process.
We hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a like, a thumbs up, a share, a comment. We always like to hear from you guys. Make sure you click that bell so you get notified.
The bell.
And then every time we put a video out, you can of course find us here on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and we also put our content on Rumble. And of course, we put all of our premium content and videos that you will not see on YouTube on Patreon. Until next time, remember, it's always better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6.